What if I told you that Dead Space 2 could have had an enemy darker than the red marker, smarter than the unitologists, and far more dangerous than the necromorphs themselves? If I had been in charge of Dead Space 2, I wouldn't have just escalated the red marker. I would have replaced it with something far more terrifying. A hidden cult, a transhuman empire, a faction that already understands the true purpose of the markers and the Brethren Moons, and instead of worshipping them, they bend them. This is the Eternal Crown. In the original Dead Space 2, the red marker is still treated like the ultimate force. Unitology still believes in convergence. EarthGov still operates through secrecy and panic. But by this point in the story, the narrative should have evolved, because by Dead Space 2, the real horror is no longer just alien infection. The real horror is that humanity already knows too much. They know the markers alter the mind. They know the signal creates necromorphs. They know convergence means extinction. And yet everyone is still either worshipping blindly or reacting too slowly. That's where the Eternal Crown comes in. Not believers, not victims, but engineers of the apocalypse. The Eternal Crown would be a secret transhuman cult that fully understands one truth. The markers are weapons, the Brethren Moons are not gods, and convergence is not salvation. Instead of submitting, they choose to reverse engineer divinity itself. Their goal is not convergence, their goal is singularity, not the many becoming one, but the one becoming everything. Self-deification through psychic, biological, and technological transcendence. They don't pray. They dissect. They don't surrender identity. They weaponize it. Visually and philosophically, the Eternal Crown would feel like the industrial body horror of the Strogg from Quake 4 fused with the psychic god complex of the Sith Lords from Star Wars. They are not zombies. They are not necromorphs. They are still alive, but no longer human. Their bodies are fused with marker-derived crystal frameworks. Their organs are reinforced with necrotic regeneration systems. Their nervous systems are threaded directly into psionic amplifiers. Their spines are grafted into gravity warping implants. Each member becomes a unique god machine in progress. No uniforms, no hive mind. Only individual tyrants ascending towards singular godhood. Where the Strogg erase the self, the Crown inflates it to monstrous proportions. But the most disturbing part is that the Eternal Crown doesn't just alter the living. They can also do what the markers do, but on their own terms. They have learned how to repurpose dead flesh into their own controlled necromorph-like minions. Not true hive products, not moonbound constructs. These are crown-forged, dead reanimated through filtered marker technology, stripped of the Brethren Moon signal, and bound instead to Crown command protocols. The Crown doesn't worship the necromorph process, they own it. They harvest corpses, restructure them, and deploy them as expendable shock troops in the same way the marker deploys natural necromorphs, except these serve human ambition rather than alien extinction. This creates a philosophical war more terrifying than any outbreak. Convergence says become nothing together. Singularity says become everything alone. The Crown sees the Brethren Moons as obsolete extinction engines. To them, convergence is not transcendence. It is enslavement to a cosmic factory. They don't want to be absorbed. They want to replace the gods. They don't want a hive. They want a throne. In this version of Dead Space 2, the Eternal Crown would be the first faction in the galaxy to achieve true marker-based functional technology without submission to the hive. They would wield marker-powered medical systems that rebuild organs through controlled necrotic synthesis, psychic implants grown from stabilized marker crystal, neural weapons that induce partial convergence without full transformation, gravity armor that bends biological mass on impact, surgical resurrection chambers that create both crown ascendants and crown-bound dead rather than natural necromorphs. The red marker itself would no longer be the main villain. It would become a chained god corpse beneath the sprawl, still broadcasting, but intercepted, filtered, and reprogrammed. No longer the signal master, just the signal source. This completely transforms Isaac's role. The Crown would not hunt him because he builds markers. They would hunt him because he proves a human mind can survive direct marker overwrite without full hive assimilation. To them, Isaac is a natural singularity candidate, not a prophet, not a survivor, a failed god in progress. Unitology wants him to build a marker. The crown wants to rebuild Isaac himself, not as a servant, but as a perfected ascendant. The horror becomes psychological, ideological, and existential. He is no longer running only from monsters. He is running from those who believe he is unfinished divinity. Replacing the red marker with the Eternal Crown would make Dead Space 2 far more disturbing because the enemy is no longer alien, it is what humanity becomes when it fully abandons limits. The horror is no longer just the loss of the body. It is the loss of moral restraint while keeping the will. Necromorphs become biological collateral in a much larger war between extinction through the moons and deification through the crown. And Isaac becomes the battleground between those two futures. The Eternal Crown's origins would be intentionally unknowable. No official founding date, no confirmed homeworld, no trace in EarthGov records, only fragments. Colonies that vanished before modern marker discovery, facilities hidden inside dead stars, architectures that don't match any known human design language, pre-collapse technology older than Unitology itself. The implication is subtle and horrifying. The Crown may be survivors of a civilization that rebelled against the Brethren Moons long before humanity ever encountered them. A failed god war returning across time. With the Eternal Crown as the antagonist, the franchise gains an ideological nemesis, not just biological horror. The markers become tools instead of gods. The Brethren Moons become obsolete extinction engines. Isaac becomes the accidental prototype for humanity's final evolution. The horror evolves from infection into self-made damnation. The scariest truth is no longer that alien gods want to erase humanity. It becomes that some humans have already decided to replace them. And it doesn't stop at reshaping flesh. The Eternal Crown would also learn how to harness the marker's raw psychic energy directly. Not as hallucinations or uncontrolled broadcasts, but as a weaponized extension of their own will. Crown Ascendants would be able to move objects with focused telekinetic force, tearing machinery from walls, hurling bodies across chambers, or collapsing infrastructure with a thought. They could induce localized mental madness in enemies, overloading the human mind with filtered marker frequencies that cause panic, paralysis, suicidal impulses, or violent psychotic breaks in seconds. And in their highest forms, Ascendants would channel that energy outward as pure force, releasing arcs of crackling psychic lightning from their fingertips, disintegrating targets through neural overload and cellular rupture rather than physical impact. At that point, combat would no longer feel like fighting infected corpses. It would feel like fighting self-made gods, drawing power from a stolen apocalypse. The battlefield wouldn't just be threatened by claws and blades anymore. It would be warped by gravity surges, telekinetic shockwaves, reality-bending psychic pressure, and living lightning pulled straight out of marker signal space. The Eternal Crown wouldn't just control monsters. They would command the same invisible forces that drive the necromorph plague itself, except now those forces would answer to individual ambition rather than a cosmic hive. The red marker represents extinction through obedience. The Eternal Crown represents extinction through ambition, and Isaac Clarke would stand between two ends of existence, submission to the hive, or ascension through self-made divinity, not as humanity's savior, but as its unfinished successor. And that's why, to me, the Eternal Crown would have been the darkest possible evolution of Dead Space. Not an alien god, not a mindless hive, but humanity itself refining the apocalypse into a tool of self-deification. A faction that doesn't fear the markers, a faction that doesn't worship extinction, a faction that believes the end of the world is simply the raw material for becoming gods. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Eternal Crown concept, and if you'd like to see this turned into a full alternate Dead Space 2 campaign. For faster theories and bite-sized lore, you can check out my Shorts channel, and for full deep dive videos, the link to my long-form channel is in the description and pinned comment. Until next time, stay curious and stay in the dark.